Welcome to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to give you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
This episode is brought to you by Blue Blocks. Blue and green light is destroying our sleep, hormones, and performance, and that's why it's important to wear blue light blocking glasses. But did you know that all blue light glasses aren't created equal? I personally have started wearing Blue Blocks blue light blocking glasses, as they are the only blue light blocking company in the world that create evidence-backed lenses for filtering blue and green light. Their Australian lab-built lens technology is fitted into the most fashionable frames, and they even can make prescription and reading glasses in their optics lab. Whether it's their Sleep Plus glasses that block 100% of blue and green light, their Summer Glow mood booster glasses, or their blue light computer glasses, Blue Blocks has you covered. I wear my Sleep Plus glasses 2 to 3 hours before bed, and my sleep has never been better, and I feel so well rested. The daytime ones are also great at reducing digital eye strain, headaches, and lowering stress. With free and fast worldwide shipping using code SUPERHUMAN at checkout, now is an amazing time to level up your sleep and eye health. Just go to blueblocks.com, that's BLUBLOX.com, and enter code SUPERHUMAN to save 15%. Greetings, Super Friends, and welcome to this week's episode, which was lovingly crafted thanks to a review from Maggie CHC in Mexico, who says, 5 stars. This is the first podcast of the Superhuman Academy that I've listened to, and I feel so happy and motivated. Matt and Jonathan provided great ideas, not only to improve our performance, but also to become better human beings. Great work, Jonathan. Thank you for spreading amazing ideas. Well, thank you, Maggie, for spreading amazing energy, because it totally brightened up our day to get this review from you. And if you haven't left a review, please do, because I read them on the air. It's a whole lot of fun. It's a whole thing. So just consider leaving a review. On to today's episode, ladies and gents. Today we are joined by Guy and Ilan Ferdman. They are brothers behind the Satori Prime brand and podcast. They are also speakers, and they have a combined 34 plus years of coaching in the fields of business, leadership, personal development, and spiritual growth. Their application of psychology and neuroscience combined with ancient practices of energetics gives them a unique approach to problem solving and transforming lives. Now, I wanted to chat with these guys and learn a little bit more about all the crazy stuff that they are doing. I wanted to learn more about their journey and how they got to where they are today, teaching programs and hosting podcasts and doing workshops all over the world and all kinds of cool stuff. Now, I will tell you, this episode gets more out into the woo-woo than we normally do, but I think you are all ready and prepared, because we've had quite a few episodes that talk about energetics, energy, and the mysterious inner workings of the universe. I know a lot of you love to learn about this stuff, and so we just went with it. And I think you are all going to enjoy this conversation with Guy and Ilan Ferdman. Ferdmans, how are you, gentlemen?
Wonderful.
Welcome.
I like that. No one's called us the Ferdmans in quite some time.
That's true.
Welcome to the show. I'm so happy to have you guys here and get a chance to connect and reconnect, because I really had a blast on the Satori Prime podcast. So I'm looking forward to turning the tables and getting to know a little bit about you guys.
Awesome, man. Us too.
Shaking in our boots.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit. I tried to cover your bio, of course, in the intro, but, you know, it's always better to hear it from firsthand source, especially because I'm interested to hear this interplay, how you guys collectively tell your story together. So tell us a little bit about who you are, where you came from, and what it is that put you on that path.
Well, we came from the motherland, where John is residing right now. Both of us, we were born there, actually moved to the States when we were 7 and Guy was 5. But I'll skip ahead a little bit. So we built Satori Prime after Guy and I lost everything in the financial collapse. And what was interesting is when we built Satori Prime, the idea was we really wanted to coach. We just wanted to do like the life coaching thing. We had done that since 2003, both of us, for free, coached thousands of people for free. and then got online and started that. And what's really interesting, and I think I even spoke about this on our podcast, is things always have this way of unraveling. So we ended up, instead of doing life personal development coaching, for the first maybe 5-6 years of the business, we actually went into affiliate marketing, then Facebook marketing. We did a digital marketing agency, and kind of like in the background of all of it was personal development. So like everyone that came to learn anything from us always had this stuff in the background, but we never let it up front. And at the end of 2016, we were kind of looking back at what we'd done over the last 5 years, and we realized that it was time. It was time to kind of drop everything that we were doing. So we dropped an affiliate marketing business that was producing 7 figures a year. We dropped a training business platform that was producing 7 figures a year to go fully into personal development. And even that in the last 3 years has changed a lot. And now I would say we have kind of created, I don't know if it's our own, but it's definitely our own brand. We've spent the last 17 years or so between the two of us each, plus about $1 million in our education from mentors, seminars, experiences, coaches, etc., and have just kind of been living life. And I think today, and this is, I hope what we get to talk about today, but we did mindset work, like really, really deep mindset, NLP, neuroscience, stuff like that for about 10 plus years, only to realize that it kept bringing us to the same paths, like the same issues were coming up over and over and over again. And that led to some interesting questions of like, well, maybe there's another way. And that's what kind of opened us up to this whole, what now we deal with a lot more of like subtle mind, subtle body, awareness, things that Eastern philosophy really delves into. And now we're just kind of marrying the two worlds. Like, how do you connect the mind and the heart together to be a fully aligned human that can produce results easier than you've ever produced them, bigger than you've ever produced them? And that's the core question that we keep asking.
Wow. What prompts someone to give up 2 7-figure businesses? I mean, what was going on in your lives? You mentioned the financial crisis, but that's a really bold sacrifice to make. Talk me through that decision.
I'll take this one. This is Guy. 2 things come to mind. The first is negligence. The second is insanity. And I actually mean that in a good way, to be honest. Like, I know that sounds funny, but the reality is like, you kind of have to be dumb to start a business in a way. And I don't mean like dumb, like you're not smart, just kind of like not knowing really what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's true for a lot of things in life. I challenge the idea today that when people say, what's that line? I wish I knew then what I know now, like that whole thing. And I'm like, no, you don't. If you knew that, you wouldn't have taken the actions that you took. You probably wouldn't have gotten married. You may have not had kids. Maybe you wouldn't have done that 90-day health challenge because it was harder than you thought, or whatever it was, something that intrinsically probably your life, or made you, you were going in one direction, then you took a hard right turn and suddenly find yourself doing and being a completely different way. A lot of that comes from negligence. Honestly, the reality is we had been running a business for 6 years. We thought we were very competent at what we were doing, that we knew how to build systems and teams and all this kind of stuff. And we're like, okay, cool. We'll just invest really heavy with these resources that we have to develop a new company. And kind of like shift the brand. And the reality is like the day that we made the decision was like the day that we basically said, okay, we're going to start a brand new company. We certainly didn't look at it that way, but that's kind of been the ride. Like, this new variation, if you want to call it, of our company is not even 3 years old right now. And it's kind of gone through the same paces that you go through when you create a new business. And that it's like, the messaging has to be out there for a while. It takes a little bit of time to get traction. You make a lot of mistakes that you wish that you hadn't. And so to kind of like backtrack, to the point of the question is why, the heart, honestly, the heart wants what the heart wants. I think we worked with a lot of very wealthy people. We've been in those situations where we've, been able to go to a restaurant and not look at the right-hand side of the menu kind of thing. And the reality for me is like, you see these like social constructs about how people say life is supposed to be lived, what's supposed to make you happy. Most of that is around achievement, success, and money. And when you watch people who haven't done, let's call it quote unquote spiritual work, and I'm really putting spiritual in quotes because that's a very wide variety of things, and they check all those boxes, the moment that they have, and they also realize that they don't feel any safer, they don't feel any better, they don't feel any more connected or have any more well-being than they had when they were poor, if that's where they started, is a very scary moment for those kind of people. And I've seen people's psychology like really have major breakdowns and start bawling their eyes out because it's like, well, what now? And those are usually the moments they start doing the work that's really important for them, which is like the internal work that ultimately really starts satisfying the outer world way more than the achievement or the money or anything else. So Ilan and I have this habit of doing everything ass backwards. Like most people start a business, then they start doing personal development. We had done personal development for 10 years, and then we got into entrepreneurship and stuff like that. So I think kind of in the same vein here, we, instead of making like more money than we know what to do with, and then kind of doing what we're passionate about, we were kind of in the mindset, it's like, if not now, when? So we kind of dropped all that, took the risk, and built what we're building now.
I love that. Now, I have a question because you talked about doing all the work and going to all the seminars and reading all the books and doing all the, the spiritual journeys. I often believe that one of the best ways to get to know a human being, their beliefs, their thoughts, their passions, is just to look at someone else's bookshelf and see which books are torn and tattered and which books have never been opened or which books are not there. So I'd love to just hear more. What were some of the most impactful milestones, stepping stones, if you will, of that journey to personal development? Because I identify with your story, and I've been on that same path, for approximately almost the exact same amount of time. And just, I think someone, if they really want to get to know me, they should say, what are the 20 books, seminars, and courses that you try to live your life by? So I'll turn that question on both of you.
So just so I'm clear, are you looking for like books, seminars, moments?
Why don't I just say sources of wisdom and information, because it could have been a conversation with a spiritual leader, or it could be a book, or it could be a guest that you interviewed on your show. But I guess what are some of the real impactful points along the journey where you learned what has become, the Satori Prime philosophy?
Cool. Yeah. So in 2003, a few months before me, Guy had done the Landmark Forum. And then I did it, maybe like 3 or 4 months later. I would say, and I think, bro, you would agree, that was hands down the most life-changing moment at that time. Would you agree, bro?
Pivotal for sure, yeah. Had that not happened, I cannot imagine where my life would be, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I don't want to take too much of Guy's story, but Guy was basically, and I didn't know this till he had done this course, was for the last 6 years, from the age of 13 to 19, was basically like on the verge of suicidal. And I had no idea. And when I went to do the course, so he had this amazing awakening experience, and I'll never forget, he called me. It was Sunday afternoon. So this was 12, but I was a senior in college. So noon, I'm still in bed, and I wake up and my cell phone rings. I see it's Guy. I was like, oh, let me talk to him. And I pick it up, and he says hello, and I start crying. And I started crying because I hadn't heard that voice. And even though Guy and I were very close, I hadn't heard that version of him in years. And like, I knew he was back, or I just knew something amazing had happened. So when he was like, hey, I'd love for you to do this course, I was like, yeah, done. But when I went to fill out everything, they were like, what do you want to work on? And at the time, no joke, and this is not to be cocky, but like, I'm graduating college with honors. I'm going to law school. I have a girlfriend that I love. Like, I was riding high. I thought my life was set. And I went into this course, and my life got like, it was like being unplugged from the Matrix. I had no idea of what was around that bend. And I think that was the moment where I was like, holy shit, this is what I want to do. I threw out all the applications, didn't go to law school, and just started to pursue that. So I would hands down say landmark education at that age was by far the greatest. Then a friend of mine came along who had done a lot of meditation courses and lived in India. And he at the time introduced me to people like Osho and Wayne Dyer and Carlos Castaneda. And I remember it was the first time that all the work that I did at Landmark about like mindset, I realized that there was spirituality behind it. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just science of the mind and the brain and blah, blah, blah. There was this like essence of spirituality. And that was a big turning point for me too, where I really started to see like Eastern philosophy. And then we've just been so blessed. Guy moved to San Diego, and we've been so blessed to experience things like ayahuasca, which was another like holy wow moment, almost as big as Landmark. And then from there, just finding mentors and teachers who have helped us to ask better questions. And instead of being attached to the right answer all the time, which I think a lot of mindset work is, it's like, let me give you the answer, find the answer, da, da, da. It opened us up to being uncomfortable with not knowing for a long time and being in an inquiry and exploring the feminine and masculine and exploring heart and energies and things like that. And now we just kind of marry all of it, like the stuff, and make it practical and easy for people to take on and practice. And that's really, I think, our gift is just to take all that soup and make it practical so someone can take it and use it.
I like that a lot, because I was going to ask, what in all of this, what superpower do you feel you've come away with? And it sounds like you very much would say that your superpower is synthesizing and then teaching.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, I mean, we had this conversation on our podcast, right? And I think that's one of your superpowers too, is taking something that, I shared even before we got on. I was saying to John, like, ever since that conversation when you were on our podcast, I've been incredible at remembering people's names. And it was this thing that just switched. I read the book. We had the conversation. I was like, what's an easy practice? You're like, hey, you meet X amount of people every single day. See if you can remember their names. And I would have told you that I suck at remembering people's names. Like that was my logic. And then I went in, and I was just saying, like, I went into a room maybe a few weeks ago with my wife. There were probably like 50, 60 people in there. I knew 6 of them in there. And at the end of the night, I went back and said bye with their name to every single person. And I was just like, holy crap. How did I do that? So yeah, awesome. It really is about, so I do think that we just have an ability to, there's a lot of information, man, about mindset and heart set and energies. And it's like, it can be very woo, it can be very logic based, but a lot of it is, and this is not a knock on anyone, it's like a bunch of people trying to sound really, really smart, but you walk away, you read the book, and it makes no difference in your life. So it's like, what's the point? And I do think that there's practicality in everything once experienced. And I think that's what we shoot to give people.
That's incredible. I really love that. And I guess I'd love to hear, I know this is like a really big question, but I would love to hear, what stuff has stuck, because as you said, there's a lot of news, there's a lot of ideas and thoughts out there. So if you could almost encapsulate your thoughts on when you work with a client, what are the tools that you find yourselves coming back to again and again and again?
Yeah. Oh my God. I love this question. Also going to flip it on its head a little bit. Answer your question, but in the reverse order. Instead of what stuck, I'm going to actually say these days what we're doing is we're unsticking. So I want to just like throw a few more experiences into the gumbo soup so you guys kind of understand at least my philosophy, and I guess my life path has been one of a handful, and that's an understatement, of mystical experiences that are hard to explain and make for some real coffee talk. And they started happening when I was a lot younger than I knew to identify them, I guess, at the time. And more recently, just to kind of like throw a few more things into that gumbo soup, these are going to sound really strange, but they've been pivotal. Number one is I saw a person channel what might be called like a higher self or an oversoul. Some people would call it like sounds like an alien entity. That was one of the most interesting and provocative things that I have ever seen in my life. I bawled my eyes out watching a person do this. He's actually a close personal friend that I had no idea that could do this, and then turned out he had been in like a ton of mystery schools, and the reason I cried is it was I think the first time in my life, and this is going back maybe like 5 years, that I felt the presence of the all without being on some kind of substance.
Wow.
That's the only way I can explain it. Yeah, so it was like not like the human family, like the family, the greater family, if you want to call it that. I like just felt their presence, and I was a very moving experience for me. So like something shifted in the inside, almost like a compass that got. In the last few years, we've been working with a guy out here in San Diego who had a near-death experience about 5 years ago, and it basically popped him out into an awakened state. And then he went and pursued all these different educations and classes to kind of figure out what had happened to him. And like Ilan said, we've moved a lot of our work from the logical, from like the neuroscience, psychology, which I still find fascinating and interesting, and consume books like that at a pretty high tick. But like Ilan said, there's one thing of consuming information, understanding linear thought and how like things function in a process. And then there's like the greater intelligence of the universe that doesn't work that way at all. And I think that most human beings in general have almost completely turned away from access to. So we might say like, oh, I intuitively knew to do that, or something happened and it seems largely coincidental. But if you would kind of try to break down the probability of something happening like that, it would be too big to measure. And for some people, that might be occurring on, an annual basis. Maybe every few years they have an experience like that. By doing the work that I'm going to do my best to express right now, that can happen on a daily basis, hourly, or even by the minute. And it could actually be like a guiding force. So the last few years have been a lot more about like the energetic work. And I'm going to use this word, but I don't mean it. Understanding how to use awareness to create natural healing in the human body. So like right now, Ilan and I just signed up for a 2-year, you could call it a wisdom school or a mystery school. And this is pretty much all they focus on. So if I can give like a brief diagram, it's basically like, the first thing people try to deal with when they have any issue in their life is they go up to the mind and they ask the mind, what do I do? But the mind is just strewn with patterns. And most of them are automated, if not like 99% of them are automated. So you're basically just getting on the same hamster wheel you got on before. It might look like a small different variation than what you've been on before, but ultimately it's the same hamster wheel. And you're going to get back something that feels like it's happened over and over again. So if you're like struggling with money or your business or relationships, and it's like, oh, you keep ending up with the same type of person or in the same type of situation, most likely you know what I'm talking about. So when you ask like, or what's stuck? Well, if I keep sticking things to that system, then that system is going to use those raw ingredients, but ultimately it's going to create something that looks more, better, different, of the same variation that I've already had. So the way to like truly change, as far as I can tell now from my point of wisdom today, which will change, in the next weeks, months, and years, is to really unstick yourself. Because like what Ilan mentioned about Landmark that happened in 2003, and he said, guys back, I think maybe a more accurate way to say it is like a more authentic version of Guy is here again. It's like one that's with less layers, because we cake on a lot of layers to ourselves. So if I can give like a very brief diagram of what I'm talking about, is no matter what you're doing in your life, there is a sensorial experience happening at the subtle level of your body and your mind. So maybe like if I start talking about some negative experience that you had, you might start feeling like a clenching in your stomach, or like a heaviness on your chest, or maybe your throat starts closing, stuff like that. Now, you cannot control that experience with your mind. Not possible. That is happening way underneath that, and it's happening through a certain intelligence that your body has in order to try to keep you safe and move towards well-being. So the mind is watching this sensorial experience, whether you're paying attention to it or not. And the interpretations that you have about your feelings, your emotions, what's happening in your life are really just your mind's interpretation of the sensation in the body. So if you want to, most people are learning personal development, but the way it occurs to them is like, okay, I understand how it works now, so let me manage it, right? And then you find yourself in situations in life where you do things that you don't want to be doing or acting in certain ways. Maybe it's hostility or sadness or loneliness or whatever it might be. And that manager comes in, right? That thing that you understood, and then it starts operating in a way that you don't want to. So now it's managing that piece. And now you're trying to manage that manager. right? You're trying to manage that piece, and then you get upset about that, and then there's like then upset about that manager managing that manager. So you start getting into this kind of like big loop, and you're not really present, you're not really there, and it's not really helping you. So what our work is really rapidly has moved towards, and moving towards even greater, is instead of dealing with the mind, how do you build a relationship with awareness and the sensation inside the body so that you naturally teach the body how to metabolize energy at the same rate that it's going in, that it goes out. So you stay almost like in a neutral state. And what we have found is that the body naturally, and I apologize for the very long answer here, but I hope it's valuable, that the body is always moving towards a state of well-being. There's a divine intelligence that's doing that without any mind at all. So for instance, like if you cut your finger, there's never a time where your body's like, you know what? This is cut number 155,000. This time I'm not going to suture it up. You do it. Right? Like it's always going to move it towards healing and well-being and neutrality. So it's not that we're not moving towards that. It's more that we keep interjecting and moving ourselves away from that with mind. So when you start learning how to intelligibly work with this divine intelligence, that same intuition that heals that cut is the same intuition that can move your life. You want to call it like a life path towards one that's more in alignment, where safety is actually a fundamental way of being. Well-being is a natural state at all times. And as you move towards that, what we have found is what we're calling synchronicity, or unexplained mystical events actually become the norm of your life. And it makes for a very juicy experience. And I can't tell you that Ilan and I are living that like 100% of the time, but the frequency and duration of that has been rapidly growing over the last few years.
That is fascinating, and I definitely have been at points in my life where the mystical outweighs the everyday and humdrum. It is definitely very hard to maintain that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, real quick, bro, before you jump in, and I want to say that's true because it can't be transmitted through word. That's the problem right now. It's like we don't have enough verbiage and intellect to understand how that works, and we may never. Because this what I'm talking about is not something you can really read in a book. You might read about it, but what the book is doing, or the educator that's working with you doing, he's more he or she or they are are more pointing at something, trying to guide you towards a personal experience, like a felt experience. That's what like plant medicine is very good at, of giving a glimpse of a specific frequency or vibration that's in the field. That when you feel that, intuitively changes the way that your body operates. It's like a seed that gets planted in there. And then it like reinforms the system how to operate. When you reinform the system how to operate, the system just perceives reality in a new way. It's natural, right? Whatever your energy you're carrying in your body, your reality experience, if you want to call it this hologram experience, is just a reflection of that energy within your body. So if we keep looking outside of this, of ourselves, and trying to move the hologram experience, you're not even playing the game. Because the real game is what's the energy you're carrying in your body. We all know this. You wake up, you feel great that day. A bunch of great shit is happening in your life. You wake up on the wrong, quote unquote, wrong side of the bed, and it's like life spirals out of control. Everybody's against you. Everyone's cutting you off. It's like the worst day of your life. Your health sucks. Your relationship sucks, right? It becomes the parameters through which you see your life. So for us, it's really become about like that energy within. And that's kind of opened up this whole world of like, okay, well, if that's it, then, how do we get access? How do we get glimpses that can change that energy so the perception changes?
Where do we begin on that path?
Great question. I mean, honestly, I don't think personally, outside of like, random sort of, or they're not random. I think that's happening on purpose, of like awakening experience, near-death experience, or for some people it could be like getting really sick. Like cancer could bring this on, or just like a life-threatening disease, because suddenly there's a knowing in the system that has to shift. And we have all these stories of people who everyone said, you can't heal this, and then are instantaneously and sporadically healed, like a Joe Dispenza kind of story. So for me, most people need reflection. Like I could tell you, and I hope this is not to freak people out too much, but this is not supernatural. I want to tell you that what I'm about to tell you is is human natural, and there are capacities far beyond this that I've witnessed and seen. And again, you could take it for what you will, depending on what you're ready to listen to. That like after doing a lot of energetic work within me, there's this very clear thing now that we call like me, not me, like what's mine and what's not mine. So if you walk into a room and suddenly you feel anxiety, okay, that might be yours, but that also might be like a group collective energy that enters your body, and your body's processing that energy. It's not even your energy, but you're dealing with the anxiety of the room, right? So if you can't identify me, not me, like what's mine and what's not mine, then you're being very affected by your environment, as you would be. And the point is not to be not affected by your environment, just to know what's the environment and what's yours, right? And as you kind of do this over time, what I've built the ability to is to track people's energy systems. Let's call it like you, from a scientific point of view, it might seem like you're connecting to their nervous system and being able to feel what they're feeling. So even now, and I won't do this to you, Jonathan, but like even now, if I focus my awareness on you, Jonathan, we start talking, I can actually guide you through where you're getting collapses in your system, depending on different various points that we might be talking about, what's opening and closing. And because I could do that, I could point out to you what to pay attention to inside of your subtle field. And that would give you an incredible amount of information about how to start metabolizing specific energies, you just using your awareness while we speak. And that would just lead to natural healing in your body. So just by pointing that out to you, and you taking notice of that would be enough for you to get that information.
And this is something, I guess, that one learns through experience and time.
Yes, just repetition, like anything else.
Yeah, kind of like remembering things and honing your memory. Right. This is just like where most people, we weren't. So if you watch any kid play, they have this innate ability, because all humans do, before the logic brain comes in at around like 8 years old, they're just emotional beings. So you can watch a 3, 4, 5-year-old go from fully ecstatic to tantrum on the floor, back to happy, back, and it's all in the span of like 5-10 minutes, right? Show me an adult today that can go through that breadth of emotion in that speed, right? Like someone cuts you off on the road, that can ruin your day. You spill coffee on your pants, like that's it. The whole day is gone. So true. We all have this ability to process the emotion because that's what happens. The issue becomes as we grow up. And I know we spoke about this before, like learners, right? People who want to learn all the time, and like the ones with PhDs on the wall, et cetera. You know what their underlying story is? It's one of these. It's either I'm stupid or some version of I'm not good enough. Like I'm not smart, I'm stupid, I'm not good enough. Those are the people with PhDs on their walls. Why? Because as we grow up, we're constantly being told this about ourselves and that about the world. And we create this construct, and that construct, however you view it, right? Like whatever your construct is in essence a box. And the only thing that comes in the box are things that fit within the construct of what your life is. Now, every once in a while, something pierces that box. Those are the things that really throw us for loops. That's the times where we feel very disoriented, very uncomfortable. And that's when, like the smart ones are like, hey, I'm dealing with things that I don't quite know how to deal. But the issue is that where we seek to get answers are the same methodologies we've always sought answers. So if you're logic-brained and smart, you're always going to seek the answers from that path, because that's the path that has produced awesome results for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. What there is to understand is, yes, there is that mind area, but like, yes, this weekend, Guy and I were in this course and someone stood up and they're a engineer, scientist type person, and they couldn't get around this whole idea of dropping into this state of awareness. And the teacher actually spoke about someone there who created he was in pharmaceutical, and he created something, bro, it was for Alzheimer's, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. That in doing this practice, like he could just sit in this state of awareness. And actually, when you do that, like the analogy is right now you have a computer, like a personal computer where you've uploaded all this information onto. That's the information that you have, though. So everything that you have access to is on the computer. But there's the whole internet out there, right? Like so what if instead of using your personal computer, you actually could create access to, and that only happens in awareness, that you cannot access that information through mind. And so this guy created from learning these things, like how to actually bring this that old system online and tap into, let's call it the internet and the field where all this stuff is accessible, created I don't know exactly what, but like something for Alzheimer's that it worked, but he couldn't even with his mind comprehend why it was working. He just knew it worked because like he got the information from somewhere else. But when he sat with his mind and was like, I don't understand how. That's what we have access to if we're willing to do the work. And John, you asked a great question, like, how do we do this? It's just a practice, like, the things that you were sharing with our audience about learning memory. The more you do this repetition work, and like Guy actually recorded a meditation, it's really brilliant. And if your audience wants it, we can share the link. It's free. And it's a guided, so like anyone who's never done meditation a day in their lives will love this meditation because it's an active meditation. It's not like you sit there and someone's like, focus on your breath and don't have thoughts. And every time you have a thought, you're like, fuck, I'm doing it wrong. Like it's not that. It's actually, you start to create new levels of awareness in what's happening in your body. And then just by watching, you'll actually release these things. And we've had people share with us like decade-old traumas be released from their lives in 20, 25 minutes of doing this meditation. This work is so cutting edge right now that like there's certain people talking about it, but like Guy said, it's anytime someone tries to describe it, it's not it anymore. So we're like pointing to it, but the only way to have it is to actually experience it.
Well, it's kind of like they say about the Tao Te Ching, right? Anything that can be described as the Tao is not Tao.
Exactly.
All right, let's take a quick pause because I want to let you know about a product that I have been really enjoying recently, and that is Ambro Greens by Ambronite, their latest product, which makes it easy to get all of your nutritional bases covered with just 1 teaspoon in cold water. You literally can't make it any easier, and along the way, you will improve your digestion and gut health, put an end to cravings and weight gain, boost your immunity, and I've noticed that you'll get a lot more energy out of your day with all of the amazing nutrients, vitamins, antioxidants, etc., etc. So I partnered with Ambronite to give you an amazing opportunity to try their product out for just $9.90. All you need to do is visit ambronite.com/superhuman. That's AMBRONITE.com/superhuman. All right, let's get back to the episode. I want to know a little bit more about your daily routines and what you're doing to perform at a higher level. I know you both have been on this journey for a long time as I have. What do you do for yourselves, whether it's your diet, your nutrition, your own meditation practice? What are you doing, and what's the kind of top things that you did today to feel superhuman?
What an interesting day to ask that question. Today, I actually flew back from San Francisco on a delayed flight and didn't get home till 2 a.m. So today I did. So today I basically woke up, I rubbed my eyes, and I came to your podcast because I wanted to be here.
Yep, that was me this morning too. I got in from Kiev at midnight.
Oh, wow. Okay. Cool. So on a regular day, well, just describing the kind of work that we've been talking about. So my daily routine changes all the time. My no passes, like I can't go a day without, are is meditation, like Ilan described. But what I consider meditation has changed a lot. Like another really pivotal experience for me about 5 years ago, I sat in Vipassana. If anybody doesn't know what that is, it's a 10-day silent meditation retreat. You basically live like a monk. You don't look at other people. You don't gesture to other people. It's like a isolated meditation practice, and so you're sitting in silence with yourself about 14 hours a day. I want to say something like that. It was a very, very radical experience, and it's free all over the world. You can go on their website and do it if that calls to you. So when I did that, it was, it was kind of like that traditional Buddhist meditation. And like Ilan said, what we're talking about is like cutting edge, but it's really not. It's ancient, and it's now being made into kind of like a contemporary thing. And I think it's because we're at this time in human development where we are ready for mass adaptation of an awakened experience. That's my personal belief, and I think things are coming very rapidly, probably more than most people think. So anyway, in short, like today, because of this awareness practice, honestly, that's my focus. Like, I'm going to ask a question that's going to maybe befuddle a lot of you guys, but I would ask you not to require an answer, but perhaps to sit within inquiry. And the question goes something like this. It's like, what have you done in your life? What action have you taken in your life that's free of achievement, if there's any?
That's a really good question to sit on. I'm trying to ask myself the question, because I think, immediately I go to, my creative efforts, but creative effort is always a achievement thing, because you've achieved the creation of something new.
Something like that, exactly. So I've been sitting with that question for about 2 years, and I've yet to think of a single thing that I've done that's free of achievement. So I just want to throw that out there, because it lends you into knowing a little bit about how humans, or at least the narration that we've been told on the planet, has kind of driven us, and it's kind of driving us towards this edge, right? Because it's like we won't stop achieving. There's no billionaire on the planet that's like, 5 billion, I'm satisfied. It's like there's a hunger within the system that's not settling down. The nervous system isn't relaxing. Point where we are just good and present. So if you start looking at that, that's kind of how you've been brought up to believe, because children are not this way. And yet if you look at a child and you're in their space, you suddenly feel this overwhelming sense of compassion and empathy and joy for the human experience. And then yet the adult experience is like and difficulty and survival and all this other stuff. And so it's like, this isn't our natural state that we're operating in, or at least it doesn't seem to be. So because of that question, a lot of my morning routine, it was very achievement based. It was like, how do I get myself in peak? How do I perform? All this kind of stuff. And because of that, now it's like, if I could say anything, that's the same thing with the business. It's like, it's become a pursuit of achievement less action. So if I'm going to do something in the morning that's like in order to ... fill in the blank, it's become less important, I guess.
Yep.
And again, I'm certainly not saying that I don't do things for achievement. Like, money is still got its hooks in me and a lot of other things like that. But I'm working the parts in my system that have been attached to that to liberate the energy within my body to create more freedom around these constructs that aren't even real, yet drive so much of the action that we take. And most of that action is taken out of scarcity, fear, lack. And today, really, our philosophy has become twofold, I would say. The first is that it doesn't really matter what action you're taking. What matters is the quality of the energy behind the action. So that one action taken from qualitative energy is greater than 1,000 actions taken out of lack, scarcity, and fear. Because energy is like a boomerang. If the source of the action is scarcity and fear, it'll boomerang. You'll just end up creating more scarcity and fear in your life. But if you can get yourself into an aligned state, what more scientifically I think is called like a flow state, then from that place you will find that the action you're taking is not for achievement, but it comes from intuition itself. It is an action that needs no reason. And most of us know these actions, right? Like the moment you probably asked you got engaged, or you had your first child and it was, not prepared for it. Like we've experienced these moments, and those are the moments that are like the most joyous, incredible experiences. So it's like, we're attempting to drive our life, again, using attempting, right, which is like an achievement, to drive our life towards more of this fluid experience, which is really marrying a lot of the masculine and feminine energies on the planet and creating a lot more balance. So yeah, I'll leave it at that, but that's at least kind of, again, pointing at what changed and what I'm doing. So a lot of my experiences are just in opening up my awareness to more intuition,
Yes.
and less thought guided action.
Yes. Now, I know, gents, we're coming up on time here, so I do want to ask, you guys do a lot of stuff. I would love if you just explain to the audience, you've got like courses, programs, coaching. Tell us a little bit about those and how people should know if it's right for them to reach out.
Awesome. Thanks. Can I just add one thing real quick about morning routines that have really made a difference? So, what Guy's kind of pointing to, like in this aligned state, when we're in it, you receive information in the strangest of ways. I think we've all had these experiences. I wrote this thing today about, I heard this line that said, synchronicity is the pseudonym for God's work when he doesn't want to leave his signature. Isn't that brilliant? Yeah. And I think we've all been in that quote unquote flow state where a book lands on your desk, someone reaches out, etc. So as I'm doing more and more of this, like my morning routine, like Guy, have shifted a lot. One of the things that I've added, so if anyone is an achiever, something that I can highly recommend is a practice of yin yoga. So it's very different than the yang yoga. Yang yoga is like the vinyasa flows and like power yoga and things like that. Yin yoga is you hold a pose, like a stretching pose, basically, for anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. And for me, so one of my core stories is I'm a loser. So my entire life has been about achievement. Mm-hmm. It was really interesting. You do yin, and really all it is breath and gravity, right? So like you allow breath and gravity to do all the work, but you just start to notice where you effort. And it's been massive, like massive, to get that shift. It actually works on a cellular level. It just readjusts how you operate in life. So I just wanted to throw that out there because it's made a huge difference for me. And if I can just plug someone, there's a YouTube channel online that I follow. Her name is Yoga with Cassandra. She's got a ton of them for free. Highly recommend it. So I just wanted to say that.
That's awesome. I want to check that out.
Yeah. All right. So as far as what we do, we're kind of, because we came from the marketing and affiliate marketing background, we have a very clear kind of ascension model that we take people through, and it really delves in 3 forms. So level 1 is awake. How do you awaken yourself to that you have this mind that you now become aware of that is controlling everything in your life? So all of our first courses have to do with waking you up. The second phase of our courses is activation. So what we mean by that is the only way that you can get into what we've been discussing here, the experience of intuition, the experience of being guided through your heart and things like that, you create and activate a connection between mind and heart. Because right now what happens is people's minds are like, a RAM on the computer. If you have, 8 gigabytes of RAM, for example, and you're using all these multitasks, like the RAM is just pegged all the time. Mm-hmm. It's because we've given the mind endless amounts of tasks. It's like, okay, make me rich, make me happy, make me slim, make me healthy, make sure that everyone around me is happy, make sure that I'm in the amazing house, make sure I never upset anyone, make sure I'm never disappoint people. And the mind's like, yeah, okay, cool, I got that. And it's just trying to do all this stuff, and it's impossible. And that's not what the mind was designed to do. When you start to activate and get what Guy was talking about, like inspired intuitive actions given to you from a different source, and then the mind just has to go and execute on those, it's a very, very different relationship. That's activation. And then the third piece is what we call ascension. This is kind of like when you really just start to blow this awareness out and really start to live in these amazing fields and create massive healings for yourself, for others, things like that. So we kind of mapped it in a way where wherever you are in your journey, quote unquote, you can find a home. So like people who I will say this. I don't believe that Guy and I are for people who have never heard of mindset. Like if you've never heard of mindset, go read like a Robin Sharma book or, listen to like a Tony Robbins video or something like that. But people that have been around, have read, and have just kind of gotten to this point where they had that expansive thing in the beginning, and then they just kind of feel like they just keep butting up against the same thing over and over, or the growth isn't as big, and they've become resigned to like, okay, well, I had my first initial pop, so that makes sense. Like for the rest of the time, it's going to be this like incremental growth. I'm here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way. Like you can grow. Guy and I don't even recognize ourselves. It used to be like every 6 months, I would be like, wow. Now, like every day and every week, we look at each other, we're like, holy crap. Like everything feels different. I was driving in the car today after this meditation thing that we did. And I was just like, trees look different. The houses looked, it was just so, there's an aliveness that I think every human being can experience if willing to explore. And by that, I mean like it takes courage to explore the parts of you that are blocking you from experiencing life in this way. It does.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I tell people every time they sign up for our course, I was like, this is the time, where you like go to ride a roller coaster and the people are like walking around and making sure that you're like buckled in. And I tell them, I'm like, once you're buckled in, the roller coaster is off. You can't like when it's upside down go like, I don't like it anymore. I want off. Like there's a ride and a process to exploring this. But if you want to experience life with a deepness and richness of love that you've never experienced, both for yourself and then obviously to others, experience life where you can produce incredible results with effortless ease, have the juiciest relationships, lose weight and like shed weight effortlessly and easily, because a lot of the stuff that your body just holds weight because it's emotional traumas. You release that and like all this stuff sheds. That's all possible. It just takes raising your hand and then doing the work. And for those people, I think we're a pretty great fit.
Awesome. And where should we send them to learn more about you, gentlemen?
Broski, give them the meditation.
Yeah. Is it cool if we offer them the meditation for free that we recorded?
That would be great. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think this will give you guys all like a really cool practice. You can head over to satoriprime.com/meditate. So really easy, satoriprime.com/meditate. And then from there, just our website, Satori Prime, will give you a bunch of information. And if you've enjoyed this conversation and John's been on our podcast, we have the Personal Development Without the Fluff podcast, which you can listen to. And we share a lot of this stuff there as well for free.
Beautiful. All right, Brothers Ferdman, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I want to ask you this one last question I always ask, which is if people take away one big message from this episode and they carry it with them for the rest of their lives, what would you hope for that to be?
Life is way more beautiful than it's being portrayed on TV.
That is a great message to end on. Wow, that's fantastic. Guy, Ilan, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you, brother.
Absolute pleasure, my man. Thank you so much for having us.
Happy to be here.
Thanks for tuning in to the award-winning Superhuman Academy podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit superhuman.blog. While you're at it, please take a moment to share this episode with a friend and leave us a review on iTunes. We'll see you next week.